So there's a belief out there that if you are romantically in love with someone, that it must be unconditional love. Today we're going to talk about why that isn't true. I'm also going to talk about why it is that we have this desire or longing to have someone with this unconditional type of love in our life. And also I'm going to talk about what a healthy relationship really should look like. I'm Ketra Thompson, and I'm a certified master hypnotist and a life recovery coach. So before we jump into this topic, I just want to remind you to hit like and subscribe if you'd like to be notified every time I post a new video. And also, there is a link in the description below that allows you to set up a totally complimentary consultation call with me. If you'd like to find out more about how this works or how to work with me, check out that link below. So we've all heard that term before. We've all heard about wanting to have and find that one person who we can unconditionally love and who will unconditionally love us back. First, I want to look at where that desire comes from, why we kind of all feel this way in some way or another. The thing is, when we're babies, we have to form attachment bonds to our caregivers because human babies are absolutely incapable of taking care of themselves. And so there's just this innate drive to be connected to someone else because it literally means life or death to a small child or a baby. So we really have this longing. And the longing for connection doesn't necessarily go away as we become an adult. The thing is, we no longer need it so desperately because now we can care for ourselves, but that primitive part of our brain that's always been there still really craves it. And there's the other dynamic of, as we grow, we also really long to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, something beyond just our self-focus, a community. And so you compound that longing with the primitive longing of the attachment bond, and you can probably see why people end up having this longing for unconditional love, because unconditional love means you can't be rejected, thrown out of this community that you're a part of, or rejected out of the relationship that you're a part of. We all want to feel safe and secure enough to just be ourselves in a relationship, and that's not a bad thing. So let's talk about why this desire to have unconditional love doesn't really work. We tend to want this kind of love so badly that we end up extending and giving that kind of love to the intimate partner in our life, giving them all kinds of unconditional love. This can actually create a dynamic that creates all kinds of problems. The first problem it causes is that it tends to make people feel like they don't need to have any kind of boundaries at all. And without any kind of boundaries, they don't end up getting the respect they deserve, and the dynamic of the relationship doesn't have a strong foundation, especially when there's no clarity on boundaries. The second issue you can face is that you might tend to not implement consequences for destructive behavior in a relationship, and that just ends up enabling the other person to continue with their destructive behavior because there isn't any consequences to it if you have that mindset that you're just supposed to love unconditionally. The third issue that it can cause is it can cause you to sweep things under the rug and actually forgive people very, very quickly without actually resolving the issue that caused the problem in the first place. And the fourth issue this can cause is a real fear inside of someone. If you truly believe that you are supposed to unconditionally love someone, then you might also believe, even on a subconscious level, if you're not consciously aware of it, that the whole world is going to judge you if you decide to leave your partner. If you decide that this isn't a healthy relationship and you actually should get out of it for your own well-being, this could be an issue because you hold back out of fear of judgment from others. And there's a whole lot of other reasons why this isn't a great idea, but for today I'm going to stick with those top 4 reasons. So now let's talk a little bit about why conditions are so important. Because when you know what you deserve, when you know what you need in life, when you know what your priorities are, this allows you to see so much more clearly. You aren't playing a guessing game in your mind anymore over what is okay and what's not. That means you actually have clarity. Conditions and boundaries are the terms in which every good relationship can thrive. It's where everyone knows and understands the rules and the expectations. For example, if someone does treat you disrespectfully, you should actually be feeling those emotions inside of you, like anger, that are telling you, hey, this isn't okay. Our body is sending us emotions, and those emotions mean something. And so when we aren't tuned into them, then we're not getting the message. And that's why anger isn't a bad thing. That's why no emotions are a bad thing. They're signals and messages that are telling us to pay attention to something in our life. I'm sure you've heard the term before that good fences make good neighbors. And that's because when we know what the conditions and boundaries are, we know what the rules are. We know what the expectations are, and there isn't all that guessing going on. Ultimately, we want to connect effectively in our intimate relationships. And the intimate relationship dynamic is the place where you're going to most likely struggle the most, and there's a reason for it. That specific relationship will challenge your belief system. It will challenge your struggles with vulnerability. It will reveal the places in you that maybe you haven't looked at, that maybe you haven't healed. And it actually is a beautiful thing because each person is refining the other person as they're gently, respectfully, and lovingly in this committed relationship. And so having those clear boundaries so that it stays a respectful and mutual relationship is incredibly important. It's the one relationship that can cause you to grow the most if you let it and if it has clearly defined conditions and boundaries. And it's also the one relationship where if you don't have clear conditions and boundaries and expectations, then you could possibly lose yourself the most in an intimate relationship, when you end up shrinking down so someone else can shine, when you keep back your own opinions or preferences out of fear of losing someone else. Those dynamics don't create a safe, loving, and long-lasting relationship. So let's talk for a minute about what healthy conditions and boundaries in a relationship do look like. First of all, it looks like you absolutely knowing what your priorities are. You really need to know and understand what your lifestyle priorities are so that you can know which parts of your life are flexible and which aren't flexible. Because you can't be in any kind of relationship if there isn't some level of flexibility and coming together. But you also need to know what those few non-negotiable things are that really aren't flexible so that you don't bend too much. It also means you being so connected to your own self-worth that you don't try to get your self-worth from someone else, especially your intimate partner. Of course we need affirmation. Of course we need to have that communication where we tell each other that we love and appreciate each other, but you're not getting your actual deep core self-worth from that other person. It also means that you know that you're going to have to continue to be self-reflective. You're going to have to continue to grow and shift and change, especially if you expect to keep a long-term relationship healthy and strong, because each person should be growing. And if that other person doesn't act respectfully toward you, it also means knowing when it's time to leave. That you can't change someone else. You can make a request that they change, you can express how you feel, but you cannot make someone else change. And so it's really important to know when your non-negotiables are not being met and when it's time to leave. Leaving is never about not loving the other person. Choosing to leave is about choosing yourself, because you know that it's worth it to choose health, to choose your own mental, emotional, and physical safety over something that is going to wear you out, make you feel small, or keep you from reaching the potential that you want to reach in your own life. And knowing what you deserve is never about expecting perfection. We aren't going to find perfection in someone else, but that also can't be an excuse to dismiss everything and give up everything that's important to you. There has to be a balance. So at the end of the day, it's truly understanding what those few non-negotiable things are and really sticking to them. What I do is I help my clients rediscover their self-worth on a deep level so they can regain their confidence, so they can rediscover the truest version of themselves. And I do this through customized hypnotherapy programs that are custom fit for each client and their specific needs. This really allows people to get to the root cause of what's driving their unwanted behavior or what's behind their toxic relationship patterns or them making the same mistakes over and over again in their life. A state of hypnosis allows you to actually reframe your core belief system and put it into alignment with the person that you knew you always could be, with the truest, most authentic version of yourself. All of this actually also takes a conscious effort on your part. You need to take the time to be self-reflective enough to really pay attention to what your wants and needs are, to really tune in, to be able to prioritize those main things, those non-negotiables in your life, so that you actually know where you stand. It requires you to take some action. So when you are finally ready to stop doing the same thing over and over and actually reconnect with your truest self, with your confidence and with your self-worth, set up that consultation call. You won't regret it. You'll come away from that call feeling like you have more clarity, knowing more about how you want to be in your own life. And so regardless of whether or not you choose to work with me, it is worthwhile to just get some clarity and start taking action steps. Start taking the steps that you need to take to change the dynamic of your life so that you can finally have the life that you want. And just stop doing the same old thing over and over, expecting that if you give and give and give, that someone else is magically going to get it and give back to you. If they're not doing that, then they probably aren't the right person for you. So until next time, curate a life by your own design.